Sia lodato Gesù Cristo. E bisogna che mi ricordi quella richiesta che mi hanno fatto di cominciare sempre salutando tutte le altre comunità.
Praised be Jesus Christ.
Assisteranno a questa stessa.
I need to remember that there's a request for me to start by greeting all the other communities who are present for these same reflections via video. They are all present in my mind, heart, and prayer. It's for everyone. This evening, these words are said for everyone. They are words that are somehow repeated because we have already debated about the family during the spiritual exercises a month ago. We know, however, to live in a historic time in which the whole church is questioning itself about the beauty, the drama, the problems, and the harsh issues concerning the family. This reflection of the church that will last throughout the year has just begun. So, it is good that we try to deepen the topic even further, to try not to be superficial when we listen to judgments or evaluations or signs and interpret them in one way or another, nor that we remain troubled by the things we hear. It is necessary that we tend to the basics. Okay, the family is a natural reality. It belongs to creation. Some say that the family is the sacrament of creation. It is a kind of initial sacrament that God has given to all men. Then, in Christianity, the family, marriage, becomes a sacrament in the real sense and has its purpose in the salvation, grace, the becoming really as God takes it right to the end. We must try to understand and grasp the problem. On the one hand, we have to value all that any man in any human situation recognizes as true, because we are interested in it. We are concerned with it, and it is also the basis for us. On the other hand, we must attempt to understand what has gone lost, what has been ruined, what is no longer understood, even this beginning that God has put in the creation. And then the essential part, that is what Jesus brought us, what concerns us directly as Christians. This is the work to be done. If one asks to us, what is the image of God in the world? We are accustomed to saying that the image of God in the world is man. God created man in his own image. If one reads the Bible better, that is not exactly the phrase. The phrase is, God created man in his own image, man and female he created them, and then continues on to say, for this a man will leave his father and mother and will give rise to a new family. So, the image of God in the world is a family. This image is not broken down, but reflected in the man, in the woman, in the children. This is the image of God in the world. Then if we are told that man in some way has not destroyed, because he cannot destroy, but has deteriorated, spoiled, warped, distressed. You can use whatever words you want, but has distressed, torn God's plan. This first image, when we are told this, we must understand that it covers exactly the set of the image that is family. Then there are all the problems of the culture, of history, of the times, of past ages. Men have had different experiences regarding the family, even the strangest and sometimes unusual and sometimes very beautiful. Think of all the literature. Everything that has been narrated, dramatized about the family. We have a world of facts, of judgments, of experiences. All of this makes us understand that when you hear about the family and the problems of the family, even in the ecclesiastical environment, it is not easy to understand. All relate to an episode, to a situation, to a particular problem, and it is not always easy to figure out where to place oneself. Tonight, I place myself exactly on this point. Let's pretend. It's not nice, but let's pretend that you are normal people. Not baptized, and who have met Christianity. How do you meet Christianity? Christianity meets you through a missionary, through another believer, through a book, or something that begins to talk to you of Christ. And Christ impresses your life, your mind, your heart, and you begin to see not all of the truth, but the unique light that we call revelation, the light of Christ. This light fascinates you more and more. At some point you decide, I want to be Christian. I want to be Christian. I will prepare myself. I want to be baptized. Why? Because I've gotten to the point that everything about me, all that I think, all that I dream, all that I am, what I love, my realities, the family I built, and the friends, all of me needs Jesus Christ. No? Remember that the beautiful, famous ancient prayer, if I do not have you, my Christ, I would be a ceased being. At this point, a pure one decides, I want to prepare myself to receive my baptism. Correct? We are at this exact point. Then the person receives his catechism of preparation, which once upon a time was very serious and hard. He receives his catechism, and then he is told that this catechism is part of the mystery of the family, meaning marriage, or that which you want to do, which enters in the sphere of salvation brought by Christ. So the catechists take the gospel, and I'm speaking of those who want to become Christian, and they took the gospel and read what Jesus said of marriage. When even the Jews wanted the revelation of God, and Moses kept in mind the hardness of your hearts. But Jesus said, it is not like this. And Jesus gives the new law of marriage. At this point, one who is becoming Christian takes the opportunity and reads chapter 5 of the letter of St. Paul to the Ephesians, where St. Paul explains that husbands should love their wives. You husbands love your wives as Christ loved his church, and you wives be submissive. take notice that in the Bible the word submissive is a beautiful word because it is the word of Jesus who submits himself to us. Be submissive to your husbands, and each one to look after your own self and the other. It is beautiful. In this passage, marriage is described as ecclesial mystery. That is what happened in Christ for every human being, for all of humanity that gives itself and is called the church, must be reproduced in small family units. So that a family is called a domestic church or a small church. Okay? Are we set at this point? Okay, at this point, I imagine that this person who is going to become a Christian, and he says, Father Antonio, I already know what the family is, more or less. But now that I am becoming a Christian, what should happen to my family? And I will answer to this question. You here all will have some difficulty to accept the answer because of your young age, and we are used to the things are a bit mixed together. Mixed together faith, mixed together nature, mixed together everything. I imagine this adult who wants to understand the distinction point. The distinction point does not mean that I am better, but means that Jesus gives me a greater grace. It does not mean that everything is now resolved, but it does mean where I am oriented. What does Jesus Christ, who became man for my love, which is the original image, who gave himself, that gave his body and his blood, which gives me, or will give me his Eucharist, that takes me from himself, that cleanses me with the baptism. What does Jesus Christ want from me? As to him wanting from me, as to take part of this little mystery that calls itself family. A priest who really wants to help this person, who wants to come closer to Jesus, who wants to enter Jesus himself and all his family. A priest, to this young person, what does he say? Now, I am not giving you super strict directions that everyone must do as I say, but I am trying to explain my point of view. Where are the crucial points? Those that on the one hand will be hard work, and on the other hand, they will bring joy to the heart. They are beautiful, dramatic, full of adventure, and they are full of greatness. But where is the point? It is as if I had two fiancés before me and told them to try to deal with their family as if it were only one thing with their baptism. Okay? Become Christians. The first thing I would say is this. You have to understand what is a human person. And here it could get difficult. Do you want that we try? Sometimes it is necessary. If one wants to truly understand the mystery of Jesus, he must say this. In Jesus there is human nature and there is divine nature, correct? We always say this. Then if you have studied theology a little, you can ask the question, how many people are inside of Jesus? In Jesus, is there a human person and a divine person? No. There is only one person. We believe in Jesus there is one person with two natures, one human and one divine. Which one is the person of Jesus? The person of Jesus is the person of the Son. When Jesus became flesh, there was no need for another form of person. He did not become the flesh, the person of the Father, or the person of Holy Spirit. He became flesh of the Son. It means that the human person, in its most intimate nature, is a son. This is the first thing. On the other hand, we men, the only experience we all have in common, everyone, men, women, young, old, children, those who have lived 5 minutes, those who have lived for 90 years. Another was a great man, another was a poor man, another was red, another was yellow. The only experience that we men all have in common, the only one, as in all other ways we are divided, is to be children. Christianity begins like this, with being children. Jesus came to tell us that we are children like Him because He is the Son, and in Him we are children, children of a God who is Father. Christianity begins like this. If I read in the newspaper, with everything that happens, the first whore, the first denial, the first desecration is, and each one of us make 1,000 reasons, and who thinks the fault is here or there, and for me, none of this is important. The first thing that is being denied is that any person that I have in front of me, I have in front of me a child of God, exactly as I am. This is His greatness. This is His absoluteness. This is my greatness. This is my absolute. And there is nothing that is more than that. A Christian who considers a Christian who considers another Christian less than him would cease to be a Christian. To be children is the first greatness, the absolute greatness, that which God holds more. When our Carmelite saints tell us that God treats each of us as unique in the world, they are not speaking of Saint Teresa or just of Christians or just of baptized children, but are speaking of every man. Every person is unique in the world before God. If we want to go even deeper, let's remember the text that says by Kierkegaard, if Jesus came and chose the last place, if Jesus suffered, think of Jesus being crucified, humiliated, it means that if I ask myself the question, who is closer to God? Or better, to whom God is closer? There are lots of ways to judge. If I see Saint Teresa of Calcutta, I would say God is close to her. But if you were to ask me, where is God close to? I would answer, look, who is suffering more. Look at the smaller. If one feels like nothing, if one feels abandoned, you can be sure that God is close by there. This is what Jesus came to tell us. And then, like He will do to pull them near, like He will do to put them in His heart, there is Christian history. Sometimes I think, how much imagination did God have to put all of us in His heart? Unless there is a refusal of a person, because not even God can violate His freedom. Yet, if a person wants it just a little, God is there. This is to be children. I wanted to say these things because there's too much sadness in the world. And in the world we believe to resolve many things with our alchemy and our judgments. Okay. Now I will put the importance on the family. There are two consequences. Let's say I see a husband and wife whom are at the beginning, and they say, "That is beautiful. We love each other. What a dream to get married. How I long to be with you. If I stop myself from the love for you and the fulfillment of my dream, I would go against everything because you are my need." Do we not start love stories like this? And then the dramas and problems arise. If someone says, the two begin to have conflict, not to understand each other, even doubting of their love for each other. They do not know which way to go. They sometimes want to throw away the other, and even regret the choice they have made. Imagine all the drama and sometimes the tragedy of love. I always imagine these two people who are advised to go to counseling or to a psychologist. Now, I have nothing against counseling and psychologists who do their job and they do as best as they can. Normally they try, however, to analyze what is going on between the two, the conflict between the two. I would give them a little suggestion. The problem is not between him and her and him. The problem is triangular. At some point, the thing in the beginning that he knew almost naturally, that she was a gift and she was a child of God and God gave him to her, he has forgotten. He forgot the fidelità of a human being, my wife, the fidelità of a human being, my husband. That first, before anything, is a son, our children who remember him every moment. I have forgotten this. When a true family moves forward, what if there is a moment that could be for the evening? An evening prayer or a type of family meeting. What if the family had a family time where people remembered to be children? What if the child comes to realize that father, who is so tall, so strong, sometimes impulsive and sometimes tender, what if the father feels in his deepest heart the son of another? What if the child was able to give his hand to the father and then to the mother, and together say the words of Our Father, and the child hears the word, and he has that moment of suspense to say, also my Father, turns to another calling him Father. So, if a family, a young family, so that young family that is beginning wants to make sure to go forward in the right way, it should begin by saying, we are children of God, and we ask God for the biggest gift, to give us a child. The evidence of the fidelity, And then we put ourselves in agreement between husband and wife not to spoil the children and not to turn them into little tyrants, but to make them happy. Happy means children in the full sense of the term, and all that is good and true is for them. To pay attention to how we speak to them, to pay attention to many things. There are serious situations in certain families that could be resolved if by an act of generosity and of abandonment, one says to God, I would have much to tell you, Lord, about my wife, about my being husband. I have many problems that I do not know how to resolve, but Lord, I will abandon it all. I'm going to get along with this woman, in which I have a little difficulty to call wife, so that our children can enjoy until the end, and right to the end, all of the fidelity that they need. A choice like this would be enough to save the family. This is dramatic. To be children. I once told you that sometimes I happen to suggest to some couples to go to confession together. Ma, can you imagine how beautiful it would be to see father, mother, child on the bench waiting to confess one at a time? The father goes to the priest, and the boy and his wife look on. And the child thinks, look at Dad, who reprimands me, that is always right, who knows everything. Now he is saying he is sorry in front of God and asking for forgiveness. The child would feel an infinite sweetness, and in this way the wife can say, here is a great man. And then the father goes back to his place and does his penance, and everyone knows that he has confessed his sins. In the meanwhile, the wife goes. The wife goes and kneels as a girl, also herself before God, and recognizes that she needs a father to put her back in a new condition to the world again. This is confession, to be put in a new condition, to be cleansed. And then eventually all three of them go back home. And if they're at least a little intelligent, they will not immediately begin to be foolish and begin to argue immediately. They will be like little children, including those with a little celebration. I do not want to get sentimental, but that is what the family today must desperately defend. Starting with guaranteeing it to the children. Dostoevsky said, blessed are those children who have some good memories of childhood. They shall be saved. Green said, when my mother recounted to me the scripture, she put me in the Bible as you put a child in the cradle. And another, Garcia Lorca, said, every morning at 9, my mother came in, threw open the balcony and said, let's let the grace come in. These are men who have had problems on top of problems and could not forget the experience of fidelity that their mothers, who were more attentive, gave them almost like giving a breath.
di tutti i membri di una famiglia. Pensate quando si arriva a quel momento in cui il figlio o la figlia va. Ma leggete le storie dei santi, ci sono dei santi che ti dicono, Elisabetta della Trinità che dice mamma. Elisabetta
Okay, read some of the stories of the saints.
va bene, lei racconta che c'è
Elizabeth of the Trinity was a little angry and violent child.
che bisognava
She says that sometimes
la porta della stanza,
they put her behind the bedroom door and were pressing against it because they could not keep her still.
deve fare la prima comunione, la mamma gli dice,
When she had to make her first communion, her mother says to her, "Is it like this that you will meet Jesus?" The mother saw the girl completely change
doveva prepararsi a ricevere, diventò dolce, buona.
because she had to prepare to receive Jesus. She became sweet and good. When she was older, she would write, "Mother, how well you prepared me to receive Jesus."
Mia mamma
Or there's St. John Bosco. He recounts, "That day, my mother was careful that I did not get distracted. Then I prepared for the first confession, and she confessed with me. I made the first communion. Returning home, she did not want that I began to distract myself, but that I remembered that I had Jesus with me." You can read stories in which an adult is living a kind of paternity-maternity, not because he has been born, but because he is born right now.
gli adulti in crisi,
There is even the possibility of adult conversion, where they are in crisis, if they start to say, "Lord, I am in a situation in which I do not know anything. I do not know what to do. I only know one thing.
e quindi pigliamo
You are the Son of God, and so am I."
il bisogno più evidente e ti dico, Signore, custodisco questo.
Let's take being children, where the need is most obvious, and I tell you, "Lord, I look after this. Keep these two children who need to be saved,
Filialità.
who need a father and a mother. For the rest we will see."
Un altro, siamo sempre
The fialità.
no, del ragazzo che sta diventando
Okay.
che vuol sapere cosa deve fare il padre.
We're still at the point of the young person who is becoming Christian and wants to know what will happen to his family. The first step, therefore, is you have to create the home of children. The second thing is this.
Che una parola che
There's a Christian word,
trattano come occasionale o
a word that everyone interprets as occasional or incidental.
incidente.
Incidental means that when something should happen, that is an accident,
Che bisogno c'è di perdonare?
then I will pull out the word that is forgiveness.
Bene, c'è per-
What need is there to forgive if I love her? She loves me and we get along and everything is all right.
cioè, questo è folle.
But if something happens tomorrow,
Più difficile dell'amore.
I will have to forgive her. This is insane.
Non poterlo fare.
It means that the hardest thing about love I will bring out when I am in conditions of not being able to.
Di essere stato ferito, di essere abbattuto.
Is this clear?
Vedere il mondo che mi crolla, adesso tiro fuori il perdono.
I will do it when I am hurt and dejected, when the world falls down on me, and then I will pull out the word forgiveness. It is not like this. In a Christian way, the word forgiveness and the word marriage and the word family and the word indissolubility are equivalent.
Sono. A volte vi ho detto, tu dovresti dire a tua moglie, io sono l'amore per te, e viceversa. Così
At times, I have told you, you should tell your wife, "I am the love for you," and vice versa. So you have to tell her, "I am forgiveness for you."
e poi dite, sentite, il Vangelo
Because
ci sono pagine che
why did Jesus come into this world?
la pagina del figlio prodigo,
When you look at many pages of the Bible,
poi leviamo quella, leviamo tutte le
One-
pagine dove c'è gente
one can say, in my family life,
andata. Cosa vi resta?
there are
Non vi
accidents.
resta niente. Allo stesso modo, uno dice, nella mia vita familiare, tutti i cosiddetti incidenti, cioè io dico a una persona
So one can say, in my family life, They're accidents. I say to someone, I love you. If I am a Christian, I will tell you in the name of Jesus, in His place. Remember when we talked about the wedding and we said that Jesus, as the sacrament says, I am the one that takes the sting. The love of Jesus is love in its essence, is love for nature. When you find yourself in front of your husband, in front of your wife, that has hurt you, and that you did the hurt, or not even as you expected it, it is exactly there that is your marriage. I am the one who forgives you. Not because I am good and sweet, but for the structure of the Christian person. This is Christianity. Remove from Jesus the ability to forgive me and tell me what remains. Take away from Jesus the ability to forgive me, to anticipate to forgive me, and tell me what remains. In the Christian family, the word forgiveness is not an incidental word, but the way which I look at you, and I know that between you and me there is a covenant. Whatever should happen, you will be there to tell me, I am here. And this I am here is not to say that all is well and it does not matter, because forgiveness is demanding. Maybe there is nothing as demanding as forgiveness. Because forgiveness says no to harm in a radical form. Because it takes the person I have in front of me with the harm he has done and refuses to unify them and separates them. Here there is you, and here the harm you have done. I do not deal with the harm, but with you. And the first thing I do is separate you from the harm, as God does with me. If a family thinks that forgiveness should happen when things go bad, this is not good. Forgiveness is first. Okay, we go forward. Is it clear, this discussion on forgiveness? I am not doing good at all cost, because such people are people of nerves and an indomitable force. They are people who see all the bad thrown on them and yet refuse to identify the person with the harm he has done. What greater love can a woman or a man have who feels at the point that he loves his spouse, even when the dirt thrown on him does not stop him, because he recognizes inside himself a bigger dignity. How much salvation there would be in our families if forgiveness, instead of being an eventuality, was the beginning of our relationship. I will repeat a few important things. Can you imagine a family where one day the husband comes and says, "You know, dear, it has been some time that I do not feel well. I have not said anything to you, but I went to a doctor. He prescribed for me some exams. Today I picked up the results. I have a tumor." And his wife says, "What? You with a tumor in my house? Out of this house. I do not want people with cancer." Can you imagine this scene? And listen, this happens sometimes. The wife or husband in front of something like this understands that everything will change, the life will change, their schedules will change, the concerns, priorities will change, everything will change. But as long as it's a physical matter, we understand. When instead of the physical matter, there are issues of the mind, of emotions, then I do not want to know about it. What difference is there? Certainly it is more difficult. But where is the person without justifying anything says, "To me, Jesus asked me to save you." Of course, I cannot force you, I cannot put chains on you. But this is what I ask. The other word is a difficult word. The word is virginity. What is the word virginity? I will try to be very simple, because they told me that we friars do not speak of our vocation. Our friars here, the nuns of Cividino, some lay people who live in the world. We have all made a vow of virginity. It means that we have in one way or another realized that the Lord does not want for us that kind of love that is poured into a family. No, another kind of love that is without polarizing ourselves with one person in particular, but as if it was open and given to all. I don't have children, but somehow I feel a bit that all people are my children. There is brotherly affection, even spousal, that does not take this person for you, but to love in a virginal way. It is the love that, instead of using concrete signs, it goes directly to Him. Okay? It is another vocation. Even this we should talk about to our young people. There are two types of vocations to love. One to love a human being, or one to love all. Okay. Let's talk about the family. In one family, where there is marriage, the other person becomes a sign of the love of God. This sign can work well, and when it works well, the other is happy and says, "Look at my husband, wife, leads me to God." The sacrament works, correct? Then comes the moment when the sacrament, this sign, does not work very well. My wife or husband, instead of leading me to Jesus, makes me do hard work. Instead of helping me, he is a challenge for me. Even puts me in the condition to leave me, even to abandon me. All of the dramas of the family, not only with the wife and husband, but also with the children, all of the drama. So normally, we reason like this. Marriage is a sacrament of love. When things go well, the sacrament works. When they do not go well, the sacrament fails. And with the failures, I do not agree. It is like having garbage at home. Garbage smells bad and you have to throw it away. No, it is not like this. In a marriage, the sacrament is everything. When things go well, it is the sacrament that Jesus beckons me. When it does not go well, it is in another way in which Jesus says, but you realize that your love is towards me, do you not also think that in this moment I can replace what you have been denied by those who should give it to you? In marriage, the dramatic aspects are to education to the other possible vocations. One that is marital goes to Jesus through a human being, things, events. The other is a vocation that goes directly to Jesus, even with some suffering. There is no failure in love. There are situations that can be judged as a failure. But those who live, those who love, and those who feel that they're children of God never fails in love, because the unique object of His love is always there. For a saint betrayed by her husband, Jesus says, "You, in front of all that is happening, look at me." Not because you should not look at what is happening, but a Christian does not stop at the second to the last thing. He goes to the last thing. Okay. I would have other things, but I will tell them the next time. I would like to read you an interesting text that I found on the internet. It is called The Good Samaritan Family. The family was going down from Jerusalem. The city sat on a hill, the wife of a great king, in Jericho in the plain of the Great Salt Lake, under the sea level. They were going down the winding streets of history when a turn at the road met the modern times. These modern times were not bandits of disposition, no worse than many other times in history, but they attacked furiously against the family, not finding them of their taste and peace, which reflected a little light of the city of God. First the family, these modern times steal all the faith that, for better or worse, had been preserved up to that point as a firelight under the ashes of centuries. Then the family was stripped of its unity and loyalty, stripped of the joy of the children, stripped of every generous fruitfulness, and finally these modern times removed the serenity of the domestic conversation of neighborhood solidarity with sacred hospitality for travelers and dispersed. These modern times left the family there half alive on the verge of the road. A sociologist passed by that way. He saw the family, he studied them for a long time, and he said, "Now it's dead," and he went on. The next to appear was a psychologist and declared, the institution of the family was oppressive just as well. They are met by a priest, and he began to scold them. "Why did you not resist better? Maybe you agreed with who trampled on you." Finally, the Lord came by. He saw the family and had compassion, and bent over it, washing the wounds, pouring on oil and wine of His tenderness, of His love. If I, God, load the family on my shoulders and carried it to the church, entrusting it to the church, saying, "I have already paid for the family, everything that was to be paid. I bought it with my blood. I want to make it my first little spouse. Do not leave the family alone on the road at the mercy of the time. Restore its strength with my word and my bread. On my return, I will ask the church to account for this family." When the family got back, they remembered the face of God bending over it, tasted of the joy of that love, and asked itself, "How can I repay the salvation that was given to me and healed me from its selfish solitude and from its divisions?" The family proposed to return to the streets and heal the wounds of the world. It would have stopped itself next to all the unfortunates of life to assist them and tell them that there is always a saving love, a love that stops next to who is suffering and is alone, who is despised by himself, having squandered all his humanity. In the window of the house, the family would put a lamp always lit, a sign for the stragglers of the night, and its door remained open for friends and strangers, because anyone that is hungry, thirsty, tired, could sit at the table of universal brotherhood. Conclusion. That famous young person who wanted to become a Christian and be baptized and wanted to know what would happen to his family, he got some answers. Then, however, he goes out on the street, turns on the television, hears friends at the bar and at work, and all they say another thing. For this to be possible, there is need for what we call, from our experience, also with other names, what we call the family of families. That is, families that are supportive and make a gift and help each other, because these things remain true, because the family did not return to being thrown out on the road. We are trying to do this. Tonight you have heard me. You can say that I have heard good things. My answer to you is this: it is not enough. Do not just hear it only once. You have to live in a family environment where these things are loved, remembered, retold, in 1,000 styles and in 1,000 ways. You may remember them even when the winter holidays and summer holidays. With the catechism meetings, with the booklets we read, with the mission. It takes a family of families where love is what Jesus taught us. We are together for this. And we believe that Jesus is happy with the work we are doing.
Noi siamo assieme per questo e siamo convinti che Gesù è contento del lavoro che stiamo facendo. Sia lodato Gesù Cristo.